I was born and raised. Was born in Houston, Texas, and then raised. I was adopted, and then lived in Nashville for 3 years, and then grew up the rest of my life in Memphis up until college.
Did you like living in Southwest Tennessee?
Oh, Memphis is awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a musician in Memphis for a lot of years before I joined the Army, so now I spent all my vacations in the Army going back home to Memphis when I could have gone elsewhere, so yeah. Growing up, I rode horses. Everybody else in the South rode four-wheelers, but I played lacrosse in high school, wrestled, swam, did cross country, what else? Golf, and Memphis is known for male cheerleaders, and I was a co-ed cheerleader where it's stunt with girls and stuff. It's not just guys cheerleading, but been on ESPN twice for national championships. Got placed 5th in the national championship and 3rd. So that was a big thing in high school. Yeah. Well, my whole life, I always wanted to be in the Army. My grandfather went to West Point and graduated class of 1950 as a veteran of World War II. So that's pretty crazy class, because they were the guys that were in World War II, and then they went to West Point, and then most of them all went to Korea as officers. So that's kind of a big thing that I grew up around. And also my uncle on the other side of the family was a nuclear submarine captain. So growing up hearing about, he really did Red October stuff. Well, after 9/11, I was in college. I was in college when 9/11 happened, so I rode that out. Never, I don't know. What made me really want to? Alright, what happened when I joined the Army was I was working at a bar called the Flying Saucer, and next door was an Army recruiter station. Mm-hmm. And I used to smoke and joke with the Army recruiters outside, and one of them gave me their card one time, and finally a girl broke up with me. Shit just wasn't happening with my music and stuff, and I ran over one day and signed up behind everybody, didn't tell anybody, and ran off and joined the Army. Well, I wanted to go Army and Airborne because I knew about it. I mean, I knew what healthcare specialist was a combat medic job. I didn't get bamboozled. I when I was in high school, I went through and I got taken out to many lunches from the Navy, Marines, Air Force, and got to know all of them before it was wartime, and I just didn't want. Well, I wanted to be in the fucking Army to be in the Army. My mom was a nurse, so I always kind of had that background. It's not like she didn't hand off her trade to me or anything. This is a house of learned doctors. But so I always, healthcare, I was around it a lot. But then a big part that wanted me to be a combat medic was the Band of Brothers. The one episode in particular that highlighted their medic from Louisiana, and the way that he could walk around, go from foxhole to foxhole, and was cool with everybody. Like, that was the coolest. Like, the way that he got to traverse across the front lines, the back lines, and be part of everything. I thought that was awesome. When I joined the Army, I went to basic training at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and then went to AIT to be a combat medic at Fort Sam Houston, and then went to Fort Benning for airborne school, and all of us tried RIP for a little bit until we got kicked out for DIP, and it all ended up in Alaska. And so that was kind of where, if you went to airborne school, you either went to Vicenza, Italy, Fort Bragg, or Alaska, and everybody wondered what the hell they did to piss somebody off at airborne school to get Alaska. Yeah. But So we all went there. Fort went to Fort Richardson, Alaska, and that was first duty station. Was a combat medic in the 501st there. I think when we all got orders at airborne school, there was word through the private news network that that unit was deploying within a year. And then we had all heard about their deployment in Iraq. Once again, through the private news network, you start getting phone calls from people who had already been there and who had gotten there ahead of you. And so, but the big one, it was August in Alaska. They pulled us in the auditorium and basically said from this, we have 6 months. And that was the training timeline. Man, that whole, I guess, 6 months of training, I mean, running around with all the combat vets who just got back from Iraq kind of made it, I don't know. It made the stories about Afghanistan you'd hear that it was different than Iraq. You start like wondering like about the terrain. You started worrying about like, am I going to be good enough as a medic? Because that was a big thing. I mean, but it was definitely so unknown. I had one big image in my head about what deployment was going to be like and what we were going to do, and it was entirely different than when we got there to Bagram, and from there on out it was totally different than what I had ever imagined. But I wasn't really scared at all. I kind of joined the Army to go to war, so I was kind of gung-ho and happy. But definitely like, yeah, the weird shit in the back of your head of like, holy crap, I'm going off to war. February 6th, I went pretty early. I was one of the, not Advon, but one of the first units there. So yeah, beginning of February of 2009. And then I came back beginning of March 2010. We were actually in the trailer that teaches you about IEDs and V-beds and EFMPs and whatnot. And a bomb went off. An indirect mortar round came in to Bagram. And when the instructor stopped and opened the door and looked around and gave it the like 180, like what the hell just went on? That's when I was like, I remember first Sergeant Tharp, when we came back to the tent, he was like, is it real yet? And I was like, Roger. The FOB that we were out of, which was just where we refit, was FOB Salerno in Coast Providence. And so we flew after two and a half weeks of acclimating in Bagram and doing just watching movies and going to the chow hall rotation. And then I sit at flight lines representing the ISAF flag. We finally took took a C-130 from Bagram to FOB Salerno, and then from FOB Salerno they had us immediately hop on Blackhawks, and they transported us in Blackhawks in the middle of the night to our FOB. So that was to our combat outpost in Nariza in Coast Providence, but on the Pakistani border. There was the mountain range right next to us that was Pakistan. So we flew in the Blackhawks, and the whole time I'm sitting there looking out the windows, like you could see every once in a while like a light in a village, and that was it every once in a while, and that was the only thing you saw, and you're like, this is crazy, because we got there and the guys from 101st 506th unit was leaving, and they were the last guys left, and they ripped out literally the second we got off the birds. They were hopping on, and a couple of them were saying stuff to us about like what to expect and what was going on. And I remember one guy said like, yeah, one of the villages is fighting the other village right now. And I was like, all right. And sure as shit, you look over in the distance and you see like tracers going back and forth. They're not shooting at us. And he goes, it's all cool, they're just shooting at each other. And the dude got on the plane, got on the bird and flew off, and that was like our only contact doing with these guys from 101st that were leaving. Yeah, At our combat outpost, we were usually on a 4 day rotation to where you do 4 days of missions, and then 4 days of guard, where you'd rotate and do guard tower duty, and so we had 2 platoons doing that, flipping back and forth. So on the 4 days you're doing missions, every day you'd get up, eat breakfast, and then you'd have a mission called either 9 or 10 o'clock, dependent on the mission, and do a mission brief, and get told of how long you're going to be. Usually we kept bank hours if possible, but that never happened. So we try to go out and there was always key leader engagements and make our presence known and just go around and in turn try to draw fire if possible. But a lot of hearts and minds, there was during the coin era. So we'd go to these crazy Taliban villages that had no military males, but there would be kids and the elders, and then the women, but there would be no military age males. Nobody, and you could tell that they were like supported by the Taliban, but they were what they call fence sitters, people who just wanted to. They didn't want to. They got stuff from the Taliban and they got stuff from us, and it depended on who was good to them that week was who got the better of them. So we were literally in a fight for hearts and minds. So we'd go and drink tea with people, hang out. I've given out so much like goods. We'd hand out stuff like aid, like blankets, stuff for schools. We rebuilt a couple schools and sat there, just brought our lumber and a saw and a couple of rednecks, did carpentry backgrounds, and built benches for schools one week. And then one time we were handing out like soccer balls and blankets in one side of the village, and the Taliban pulled up in a Toyota 4x4 van that they had, popped open the back, and then the other half of the village was over there getting bags of rice and bags of stuff, food from the Taliban. So we've literally, some days we're fighting like a welfare type battle to where who was supplying them with goods got information. Our first refit that we went to FOB Salerno, we were driving back and we hit our convoy of 4. We have 4 trucks. Our number 1 truck and number 2 truck got hit by 2 IEDs, and it was a complex attack where there was small arms fire in the distance. And so at that point, it kind of was like, I think we'd been at our combat outpost for a week and a half, and by that time we'd been blown up and shot at. And I actually, during the exchange, was looking out the window of my MRAP, and the window that I was looking at got shot. So that was kind of crazy to watch. But it was totally like how Chris Farley and Black Sheep, and he was like high on the nitrous, and he's like, I don't want to do splat. You could see the bullet fucking going so slow I was like, oh, that bullet's coming at us. And then it hit the window like right, and then I jumped back like a girl, and was like, holy shit. And everybody, same time I was about to get out, and the side of our trucks, the guys from 101st had put ammo on the outside boxes, the outside container storage things on the side of our MRAP. So they got hit by the bomb, and I was about to get out and check on the other guys, and that's when I heard popcorn going off, and they were cooking off ammo boxes were cooking off of our own, and we were also getting peppered by our own ammo that had gotten blown up. So that was kind of my first, like, don't just jump out of the fucking truck and be a hero. You get told that all the time, and I totally was like, I'd already lifted the latch, the emergency lock. Yeah, I'd already lifted the emergency lock and was like ready to pop the back door open when I heard tink 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 tink, and I thought we were still getting shot at, and it was our ammo. So that was kind of a very enlightening. I'm glad that happened to me early on, and that I knew to chill out and wait till I got the call to hop out of a truck. So when I came back from Salerno, I was there. They took a platoon element of 2 different platoons to help augment Delaware. First platoon was there, and so we were there to help them out. And in Salerno, Sabari, that's Sabari. We were there, and so that was like wild fucking west out there, especially compared to where we were at Cop Nariza. Cop Sabari was he was going crazy, and so we were there from December till January, December of 2009 to January 2010, and that place took. By the time the year ended, they'd taken over 500 indirect rounds into the combat outpost. And while I was there, at least 50, 60 within 2 months, if not more. I mean, it was the holidays. They spent a day blowing up our cell phone tower, the Roshan cell phones. That was an actual cell phone tower for them too, that they could use, but they just blew it up with mortars. So we sat there one day. They weren't shooting mortars at us. They were shooting mortars at a big telephone tower, and then knocked it out 2 days before Christmas, just to kind of give us a middle finger and say, we couldn't call home. I was at Cop Sabari around right after Christmas, in between Christmas and New Year's, and we had the Afghan National Army was stationed with us, but had their own little compound. And they were shitting outside the walls of their compound, like literally just leaned up against the walls, and so there'd be poop all on the. So we decided to take some of our plywood, and they were like, "Doc, you're a redneck. Build a fucking outhouse for them." So me and Sergeant Buccialetto, the fister in charge, me and him were sitting there building a shitter, and Taliban in the distance and Sabari start walking in mortar rounds, and Buccialetto had already ran off and was back at the Afghan compound, and he's like, "Doc, come on!" And I was like, and I'm just sitting there watching these rounds come up, and I slammed down my hammer, and I was like, "They're gonna blow up my shitter," and I was just like pissed, cause like I'd spent a day and a half building a fucking shitter, and I'm sitting there watching, and you could just, you can watch them just crossing the valley because they were over in the hill and just lobbing them, and it was 10 months in, and how many times I'd captured people after attacks, and you find a video camera, and then like, hee, ha, ha, look at him run, and you're like, they're making fucking fun of us. And I was like, I know they're videotaping this shit too. And I'm like, I'm not going to give them the glory of seeing me running off fucking scared. And I remember my sergeant was like, "Get the fuck away, Doc, they're going to blow the shit up." And it's like, a fucking shitter. It's like at the end of it, I didn't give a fuck. I cared about a fucking plywood thing getting blown up because I had taken 2 days to do it, and they were just gonna do it to be a dick. I mean, that's some like harassing. I mean, they know how to stick it to you. I mean, that's kind of where you're like, touche. I fucking give it to them on that. I'd say most intense was the attack right after Eid that I captured that Russian. It was a complex attack. 30 guys, 30 mercenaries. They were Uzbek, Chechnyan, a mixture of, a lot of them were from Uzbek or whatever. They looked half Asian and half Middle Eastern. We dropped a couple JDAMs, and so they were all in a wadi hiding, and they got the JDAMs dropped on them. And then the Apaches came through. So I single-handedly had to go through 29 guys. The only one survived was the Russian. I went through, and there was guys cut in half. There was guys headless, bottomless, legs. And I had to like catalog or stack, or they all had booby traps too. So some of them had their grenades and their bandoliers already had the spoon popped out, So I was having to put pins back in and having to take all their shit out. And that, just like the carnage of that, was probably like the most. I was about to treat one guy, and he was still alive. And the Afghan border police that was with us, they saw him like crawling. He got up and was crawling, and they were like, "Hey doc, you got a live one." And then as I'm like going toward him, 4 or 5 of the Afghan soldiers with us just start shooting him in the back, and I'm like literally 4 feet away from him. Like I was like about to get down and get my bag out, and they mowed him down while he's looking at me, and I'm like, shit.
How many American soldiers did you treat while in Afghanistan for? I mean, whether it was twisted ankles, concussions, bloody stuff. How many, if you had to guess?
Americans, probably about 100.
100.
Anytime we'd come to refit about once a month into Fob Salerno, I'd pretty much ditch my platoon if possible, as much as I could, and hang out at the hospital there, because they had a huge, that was a big lift point for if anybody got hurt in that whole area. They'd come to Fob Salerno, and then they'd go to Bagram, and then they'd go to Germany. So there was a lot of action. I mean, and then you could just hang out and do sick call. There was kids that were actually kids. There was medics stationed there that ran it, but we were all buddies with them, and I'd rather hang out and get some knowledge. I mean, we had Doc Sink was working out of there now, Doc Sink was like, "Oh yeah, you can do all this stuff," and I just got to hang out. Like when traumas came in, I saw a lot of the guys from our other company, or the rest of our company, or guys from the other units coming in. They got blown up or shot at or anything. They'd come in on casualties. So, but definitely more foreign, more Afghan. Definitely treated way more Afghan people and soldiers and whatnot, and Taliban than Americans. Yeah, Staff Sergeant Curtis, man, that guy, me and him got on like a good level. We were the same age. He was a year older than me. I guess we weren't the same age. Liar. But we both played guitar, so it's like we got locked down in the barracks one time. We came back from Greeley and didn't have a dagger. That's not a real dagger. It's the fucking GPS unit thing. But we got stuck in the barracks. I was a brand new private, but I was Doc, and I had my own room because I was one of the only privates, one of the only medics that lived with his infantry unit. Now, I didn't live in the Red Roof Inn. And so he was in there, me and him playing guitar the whole time. Curtis taught me a lot about like how to treat people accordingly to like a guy. Like don't treat them by the rank. If there's a cool private, be cool with them. But fucking, if it's a dipshit private, fucking give him shit. Like it was kind of that whole, taught me a lot about that. But I mean, he wasn't even supposed to deploy, and I remember I was standing there with my guitar and was trying to get on the plane, and the stewardesses on that World Air, they told me I could have my rifle, but I couldn't bring so I could bring an automatic machine gun. So I was helping carry the HE. I had a 240 also, was carrying like a 240 with him because he had too much shit. So she goes, "You can have the machine gun, but you can't bring your fucking acoustic guitar on the plane." And I was like, "What in the fuck?" And I'm like, "Oh fuck, I gotta serenade these boys on their minstrel." And Sergeant Curtis comes out of nowhere and runs up and he's like, "Doc, I got it. Here, give it to me." And I was like, "Sweet." Another guitar player, he knows how to take care of it. He goes, "I'll ship it for you." And that's one of the most eerie things is I remember being in Bagram 2 weeks in, and to see him and Sergeant Curtis and Sergeant Botts walking to the chow hall. And I was like, "Curtis wasn't supposed to." He goes, "Yeah, they sent me." And he goes, "Your guitar's on the way. It'll be there in a little bit." And that was the last time I saw Sergeant Curtis. think the way that I went through Afghanistan was not thinking about any of the danger. It never went through my head a lot of times. I didn't let it get to me, but subconsciously it got to me to where I couldn't sleep a wink without taking a Lunesta. I mean, if I did sleep, it was because I'd been up for 2 days on missions or just being up afterwards. I'd sit up on the computer after missions and maybe get an hour of sleep and wake back up and drink a Rip-It. So the lack of sleep and the up tempo made it to where it's mentally challenging, to where you're literally like going on autopilot, worrying about 30 guys' health and worrying about the mission, and then worrying about being healthy enough and strong enough to put one of those guys over your shoulders and potentially carry them back up a mountain or carry them somewhere to fucking safety. So that's the mental toll that takes of worrying about the physical part was the big thing for me, I think. Yeah. I'd say carrying the amount of weight that we had to carry and climbing the mountains, the steep mountains and terrain that we went on was just excruciating. Sometimes with the heat, because Afghanistan, it goes highs and lows, to where it's cold as crap at night, hot as crap during the day. So if you're up on a mountain, those extremes you feel very much a lot, and you don't acclimate. Yeah, sometimes carrying people, being a medic, that was scary thing, was like having to carry the biggest guy in your platoon going down. So that's always in the back of your head. Luckily I didn't have to worry. I didn't have to do that, but I came home, it was like March 3rd, 2010. I got left behind and on left seat, right seats, training up the guys that took over. So I did the handoff of the aid station and stuff, so Sergeant Harmon, since he had a wife and kids, could go home. And so I just hung around and smoked hash for fucking a month. And sat in a susby, the 6-wheel susbies. Yeah. And I put all the portholes down and tell whoever was with me on guard. And I'm like, you ain't got nothing to do today. It's Friday. We're gonna fucking hang out at the guard gate. Yeah, that was a weird moment, because we all get home and everybody's turning on their like cell phones when we got off at Elmendorf, and you go through and get like turn in your packets or whatever they give you, and they give you like a room key and tell you where your you get a new barracks room already, but they put you on a bus, and they had us in the gym at Fort Richardson, and people's family were there, but I'm a single soldier, and my parents weren't gonna fly up to Alaska, I guess, and so it was like we did the presentation and everybody was in formation, and I think I said hey to like Colonel Cyphers, who was the executive officer of the Army at the time, but that was my lieutenant's dad. And I went over and gave this family a hug, and then they were like, Sergeant Harmon picked me up and was outside waiting for me, and it was 5 a.m, and Sergeant Harmon drove me from the gym to my barracks room, and they had empty barracks rooms with like a little welcome home package of like soap and toothbrush and some blankets and stuff, and then you got to turn on the water and let the brown sludge run for an hour and then take a shower. And we all stopped in Shannon, Ireland on the way home, and we all were allowed to buy 1 bottle of liquor on the way and keep it in a bag. So at 6 a.m, I was in Ireland, had access to all this Irish whiskey. My redneck ass buys a bottle of Jack Daniels. I told myself the second I get home, I'm drinking a bottle of Jack. And after a year of not drinking, it's hilarious how many people, how short that morning was. So after deployment, I was at Fort Richardson for another 1.5 years. Yeah. So from 2010, so March 2010 until June 2011, I was one of the team leaders in Hatchet Company, and so did that. And then I re-enlisted and went to Fort Sam Houston, and then went to from there was on a traveling team with the Rage Battalion Tactical Trauma Team, what they call the GOAT Labs. And so we traveled around and taught trauma procedures, advanced trauma procedures to Army and Air Force personnel who were about to deploy. And we started a program to where we'd make their commanding officer and first sergeant come too. So they'd actually have hands-on training as well, and want to like actually know what was going on or be familiar, because we ran into so many people that so many leadership that would be, what's going on, and have no clue, and we'd have to be like, get out of here. And so we started training all the infantry first sergeants in that too. So that was pretty cool training. And then I got back, my home base was out of Fort Sam Houston, and I worked in the emergency room at it's a level 1 trauma center at Brooke Army Medical Center. Big thing I wanted to talk about, when I was in Fort Sam Houston, my last year, when the 501st deployed, FOB Salerno, the same FOB that I was at, got overran. Mm-hmm. That was the big, they got, that older sergeant major got shot in the leg. He's good, but one of the guys from ACO, kind of kid named Apache company named Paul Hedge, got shot 4 times in his legs by a PKM, RPK or PKM, one of the 40 cal one. Yeah. Somebody was underneath one of the trucks, got in, and he was running out with a fire team and got mowed down with his legs. He was at Fort Sam Houston. I felt like the whole time I was like, I should have deployed with them instead of going to Texas. Mm-hmm. And I was like, and then I realized I should have been there. And so like I'm glad I was there in Texas at the hospital, because we were getting all the guys as they came out from FOB Salerno getting hit, and they'd have no clue. And they were like, oh shit, Doc Loucks, you're here. And so that was really kind of cool moment of like a whole coming 180, coming full circle, because I wanted to go back, but then I had already signed up to be, to re-enlist when I did, and got talked into it one day when I was feeling weird. That's funny. But that was definitely a weird part where I've nursed, having a medic that's going through my own shit, mental stuff, and dealing with not being around the boys anymore. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I get to help hang out with one of the boys that isn't around the boys anymore and is all pissed off at his own injuries. So that was really cool, a moment to kind of hang out with somebody, another Geronimo. Yeah. The NCOIC that came down about 5 months after I'd been there and learned everything was from the 501st. Mm. It was Sergeant First Class Dillingham, Staff Sergeant Dillingham. He was in the Iraq deployment and then was in WLC. He was the NCOIC of WLC. Mm. And so he showed up and was like, Loucks, oh shit, he saw my patch and was like, Loucks, come over here. And I was like, what? And he goes, you know what's going on? And I go, oh, Roger. And he goes, I don't know anything about running a hospital. And I was like, I got you. So I got put as like the assistant of the ER's NCOIC. And so basically I was in charge of all the equipment. I had a $5 million hand receipt that I was in charge of. And a lot of people know that I was a pretty tactical acquisition specialist in my days. And so I was very good at reacquiring stuff that people took from us, because patients in the ER go everywhere throughout the hospital. You start in the ER, you can go to ICU, you can go to psych ward, you can go to just a regular floor to sit there, and they'll take your pump and different random things and your beds. And so my job literally was wrangling that and herding cats and keeping the teams I was in charge of in processing all the incoming new soldiers and airmen. Well, I was in charge of all the incoming soldiers that came in. Yeah, when I got out the Army, it was weird. Found out that my wife was pregnant with Hendrix 3 days after I got out. So I didn't have TRICARE, didn't have insurance at all, I didn't have a job. My EMT was expired in like 2 more weeks. I mean, you get out the Army and you literally would have to go back to community college and take an EMT class again, or take a test or refresh, do your table 8s, and start over and drive an ambulance. If you wanted to do that, and you couldn't just you can't get out the Army and do that. It's the way that they do it. I mean, you expire. Remember, they wouldn't like send people if you were getting out. They wouldn't send you to do your table 8s to renew your shit.
Right.
So it was kind of one of those. They don't set you up for success. They literally, you get out and you're like, all right, I gotta find a VA. I gotta find what to do to sign up for that. You gotta find out about the VA GI Bill, where you have to just. I went to a community college and walked in and found like the Veterans Center there, and was like, "Hey, I think I want to go to college here." And they were like, "Oh, sweet, I'll help you out." And you just give them your DD 214 and go from there. But they don't tell you that when you get out. You have to go through all those little classes and stuff. But I was working through that stuff. I didn't get to go through that sort of shit. Yeah. They worked me until I got out, and so I got the like week and a half to like ETS. About 10 days they gave me to.
Did the military give you an edge in the civilian world, you think? Is there anything you gained in the military that when you got out, you're like, okay, I'm glad that happened in the military?
All the time, but in retrospect, a lot of times it's a double-edged sword. The civilian world doesn't take the attitude, the op-tempo, the gung-ho-ness that guys in the Army, in my experience, or military in general, get. The organization that we have, it's a little bit too much for a lot of civilians who have never been in that sort of environment to pushing themselves. The Army's filled with a whole shit ton of Type A personalities across the spectrum, but we all live to where we don't need to be Type Bs, to where we all can live in live in harmony with each other. But then you get into the civilian world and it's like, oh, this guy, and it's like, I didn't have to get in the Army to learn how to fold clothes right. I didn't have to get in the Army to learn how to like tidy up stuff or get a job done and organize it. It just made it to where I know how to take a team of people, put them together and make something happen. And sometimes it's kind of like when like in Pulp Fiction, when the wolf, he's like, if I'm curt with you, it's because I speak with a purpose, and I want, when I say something, I want it done. People take it as too much stress or too much when you expect that much from somebody. So it's definitely I think it's a great advantage, but a lot of people think you have to learn how to find a personality and how to chill out with it and not make your expectations a little bit lower, but still do your 100% job that you want to do.
Did the military set you back at all in the civilian life?
Yeah, in a way, I think the military set me back. I came from a weird background to where, I was 24 when I joined the Army. I had already traveled around the country as a professional musician, and I worked for Memphis Wrestling with Jerry the King Lawler as a manager and an on-air personality like Jimmy Hart, the Mouth of the South, who was Hulk Hogan's manager. So I'd done that. I'd opened up for bands like Bob Marley's band, The Wailers. I'd opened up for Afro Man and 3-6 Mafia. Been on tour buses and seen some of the craziest shit possible with rock stars. And then I joined the armies to where it's another level of fucking debauchery in the barracks. It's another level of to where you learn how to be a rock star of your own, to where I didn't give a shit about what I did in the past. It was like how big of a rock star you could be in the army. And then I got out to where my personality is different, to where I'm kind of an extrovert now. I used to be talking to everybody, and the only people I really talk to, like an extrovert, it's like you got, I mean, the way you came over, I just talk my ass off. Get somebody else that I can't just be like comfortable with, I'll give them the abbreviated Cliff Note Carl, you know, you'll see my congressman. Mm-hmm. You're not going to see me. Because I can't, because of that whole army personality, I kind of hold back, and I'm not going to, they're like, oh, tell me a story, and I'll tell them about police calling and picking up cigarette butts. I'm not going to tell them about Afghanistan and the shit, you know?
Right. You get one word to describe your entire military career, from beginning to end. One word. What is it?
It's almost like malarkey.
If you want a phrase, you can have a phrase.
Shit. I'm all talkative, but I can't come up with one like thing. Random. I mean, that's a big key thing of my life, was the random shit, the randomness that happens, and stuff that I've just gone along with things like a fart in the wind, and just been like, okay, I'm doing this today. It's kind of made it to where I'd wake up and you'd get a new mission every day. I mean, you'd fucking wake up and be like, I don't know, let's see what the fucking, I mean, one day we got our barracks locked down, and we were like, oh, what the fuck? And then 3 PM, President Obama came out and was like, strutted out and was like, we got him. And you're like, oh shit, no wonder they locked the fucking barracks down, because if they hadn't, we were on QRF. So it's like, you fucking never knew. Like, you could have been sitting in Fort Rich, drinking, playing fucking Call of Duty, and within 18 hours, we could have been on the other side of the world with our fucking duffel bag that's hidden underneath our bunk bed.
There are 3 million Afghanistan and Iraq veterans that live in the United States. Would you give them any advice, any kind of words of wisdom?
Take the blue pill. Man, I'm a big thing of, I think veterans, especially from this generation, have a good thing going to stick together. I think some of the organizations that have come up, businesses that have popped up, even just our own counterculture. We have our own counterculture now. I mean, there's Ranger Up, there's Grunt Style, there's hundreds now. I mean, there's Black Rifle Coffee, the stuff that gets promoted. I mean, Range 19 movie, it's just awesome stuff that can happen to where, I mean, how many times we go to the airport and you just look around, you see a hat, you see somebody with a Grunt Style shirt, you see somebody and you walk by, and I've even gone on the airplane and seen somebody sitting there and you just give them the what's up, and then just walk. And you're like, nice shitty beard. I go, you know what I mean? Yeah. And you're just like, yeah. That's why I grew my ridiculous mustache. You know, you'd see people, I don't know if you knew, I had the handlebar mustache because I look homeless with a beard. But it's like we have our way of kind of pinpointing. Like my buddies would be like, how do you know that guy's a Marine? You don't know him. And I'm like, well, his shirt fucking, you know, it says Camp Pendleton. You know, it's the shit that we only notice and stuff. So I think even me having a family background in the military, and I knew all about it. I actually knew what units in the Army were. I knew that Green Berets were special forces. I knew that Rangers were Rangers. I still didn't know all the shit that's possible. And so my big thing is, I think somebody wanting to join needs to fucking, beyond the whole reading the books of, I remember people were like, how to survive basic books. Man, they need to look at all the different jobs that are possible to do. And they should have a better system of saying how your job can correlate to the real world. I mean, I hate to say it as much as we called them pogues and bitched about them, but people with the HVAC, you know, they're like, oh, I fix generators, or I fix air conditioning. Those guys are making 6 figures out the gate when they get out, running some building or whatever. And joke's on us, hey, I got to pick my MOS and I got to be a rock star, but like, what, we can maybe apply for the police force, firemen, and drive an ambulance. And so that knowledge base, I still would have done it, knowing I still would have done my job being a 68 whiskey no matter what, but the whole knowledge of what you can do with your job and what you can do out, nobody knew. Nobody fucking, I remember the big joke was telling MPs that they can't be a cop when they get out. You'd be like, yeah, they're not going to hire you. Like, why? Because you got to retrain and learn everything again. The same with the SF security forces in Air Force. They're fucking gate guards, man. They're so nobody even know. And it's the same thing with, I remember in AIT, what they were like, all right, so healthcare specialists, how many of you guys think that you are going to be in a hospital and blah blah? And they were like, how many people knew that this is actually like a combat medic training? There was a handful of people, at least 10, 20 people that had no freaking clue. But they were signed up and already been through basic and were day one of AIT, didn't know what the fuck their job was. They had no clue. Because the picture on the brochure has some guy in a uniform giving some kid with a pot belly a shot in fucking Darfur. That's not really what we do. It tricks you. They church it up and say healthcare specialist. Because I remember my recruiter, he goes, oh, you're going to be a healthcare specialist. I go, no. I want to be a combat medic. That doesn't say it. And he goes, oh, that's how we get them. Yeah. And I'm like, well, shit. When Sergeant Curtis got killed, a lot of the guys happened to be at Sharana or made the trip. I was on mission doing other stuff, and I remember I went in and talked to First Sergeant Tharp. He'd gotten pulled off the line and got put in the office, and I started to talk to him about, like, you know, feeling bad and whatever, and wanted to get into it. And he told me, he goes, dude, you can't do that shit right now. He was like, you got plenty of time to get home. And I kind of got told, like, I literally never got a chance to do it. I don't think I cried at all. Like, as much as, you know, cried when I got sand in my fucking face from that Chinook. But I mean, not, you know what I mean? Like, never cried. I cried when I got fucking home. But I went that whole time, like, with blinders on, I'd get off mission and try to forget anything and not. Yeah, so that was, I think that's kind of attributed to a lot of my PTSD and problems now is I put all that shit down, and I never got a chance to see, you know, a pair of combat boots and a rifle and a helmet on top. Never got to see it, you know. I saw some of the pictures when we got home of the guys, you know, and seeing that. But I think I always kept just going. I mean, I'd get out. And so that was, yeah. I still have that guitar. I have that custom slip.
Yeah.
You know, written out. And that's at the studio in Memphis. And that's like one of those, like, man, like a couple people, like Sergeant Simpson said something about it. He goes, yeah, I was there when Curtis did that. He goes, I saw that shit. And I was like, and he goes, that's a pretty cool thing, you know, because the day I got out of the Army, I went to Simpson's house. And we talked and got stoned. And he was really close to Curtis. And so that was, and Simpson reiterated how Curtis really liked me and stuff. And he was like, yeah, dude, you fucking He sent that, and I always had that, like, I always was like, I'm gonna pay him back. He owed me, it was like $45 he spent. And then, he got killed. And then you're always like, man, I almost want to give his kids that guitar or something. You always have that, like, same with like you, Lieutenant Andrews and Martinek. I mean, you just have that now. It's like you feel like carrying on their legacy or anything you have that. I mean, I've probably one of the last things he sent to somebody that wasn't his family, and that's like crazy. Just not here. It's like you can see somebody at a DFAC at a chow hall in Bagram in March, February, and then August he's gone, and you get home, and you don't. It's just like, where's Curtis? Like, because I didn't get to go to the ceremony or stuff. So that's a weird feeling to have.
Yeah.
We were in Sabari, and we were doing an indirect. We literally shot a javelin and had a javelin go over my head at the Taliban that day, and like it was crazy shootout. I don't know if it was from us or them, but a civilian got one of the Afghan local nationals got hit. One of the Kalats got hit, so I went to go check it out, and one of the guys was peppered up a little bit, and I patched him up, and he said, "Oh, I'm fine." But then they said that his daughter was hit really bad and bleeding out of her leg and stuff, and I was like, "Well, let me fix her," and he was like, "No." And he said since she was a certain age, in between like above like 14 and wasn't an old lady, I couldn't treat her because I'm an infidel and unclean. So this guy let his daughter bleed out and wouldn't let. I tried pushing my way in, and he wouldn't. And then they were like, "Doc, drop it." And I was like, not being able to treat a girl that I could have saved her. I could have saved her life, put a tourniquet on. I could have evac'd her. And in Salerno, they have Muslim doctors. We had Afghan doctors working with us. She would have been taken care of. I would have not violated anything of her, But me just touching her in their eyes, they probably, with their beliefs, probably would have had to kill her anyways. So that's my big thing, is the person I didn't treat. And that's like such a weird. People want to talk about social justice here and talk about feminist movements and different things like that. Things they need to be addressing is that. I mean, the year before we got there, a girl that tried to go to college got acid thrown in her face. Where are the people sticking up for that?